Hi, I'm Garnbreak1, and this is Midgardia's Cool Crowdfunding Show. I'm here today with Max Weber. How's it going?
Hi, I'm Max.
We're here today to talk about something a little bit different than our normal fare. This is actually a video game for once. It's called Chainmonsters, and why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Hi. I'm Max, main developer and creator of Chainmonsters. Chainmonsters is basically a Pokemon-inspired retro-style RPG where you basically collect monsters. In our case, they're called Chainmons. You battle with them. You interact with thousands of other players because it's an actual MMO. So instead of being like a strict single player experience, we actually put a lot of effort and focus onto the multiplayer experience. So you will be able to team up with your friends and your foes if you want. And the best part about it, we're right now in our demo version. We're available on Steam, iOS, and Android. And in our and when the full game comes out, we will basically be completely cross-platform across like all systems, so including PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch as well. They those will be coming further down the line. So when we actually after Kickstarter, we will launch into our closed alpha. So everyone who has supported us on Kickstarter will be able to participate. They will be able to help us test the game, and most importantly, give us feedback, suggest ideas. Because everything about our whole process is pretty open. So if you're familiar with the old school Pokemon series, for example, or if you've played some of the more modern monster taming games, including, for example, Temtem, Coromon, or like any of the other actually super exciting and huge games already, then you might be familiar with like how things like this work. So we will have like in our game we have currently 136 Chainmons, and I say currently just because, well, in our Kickstarter campaign we have actually reached like 1,000% of our initial goal, which is crazy. Obviously, we raised more than 120,000 US dollars so far, and we still have I think 7 days, so like a week to go. And one of our new stretch goals is actually to add 25 more mons to the game. And if you want to take a look at our mons, then just go to our Kickstarter page, and there you can see like the full currently existing monster decks, where you can see like all the evolution stages and all the ones that are in the game. And as I said earlier, basically, if you want to give it a try and see how much it differentiates itself from other monster taming games, you can play the demo on Steam, iOS, and Android. You should join our Discord server because we do most of our communication through there. Um, but yeah, it's something if you are interested in like especially like the more like retro style look with like amazing pixel art and like if you've played, for example, Stardew Valley, we're aiming for like a high bit pixel art style. So even though the whole game has like a pretty nostalgic and retro style feeling, it actually is supposed to look super nice on like a big screen. And I myself am playing on I'm playing and developing on like a pretty um, huge ultra wide screen monitor. So this will be covered.
Yeah, I'm quite fond of the art style, actually. It's very much retro inspired without, I mean, it's actually got more colors, which is nice.
Yeah, for sure.
So, why don't you tell me a little bit about the blockchain integration?
Yeah, this is like one of the other things I actually forgot to mention in my pitch. The not only is the whole game basically a huge multiplayer and an open world, it also includes a pretty open and transparent economy. So in like say a traditional game, when you catch a mon, for example, the mon is only in like your save file. If you're playing like a multiplayer game, then the mon is stored on like a database in the server. And in our case, well, it goes another layer. So everything you do in the game, when you catch a Chaemon, when you earn a reward, when you acquire an item, everything is basically saved and stored on a system which is called a blockchain, if you're unfamiliar with this kind of like technology. And what that allows you is basically to take full ownership of everything you earn and receive in the game. And that, on the other hand, allows you to trade everything you earn in the game with another player. So if you happen, for example, to catch a super special legendary monster that is only available like once a year, for example, um, and no one else got it first or got it so far. You can then put it on the auction house or in-game auction house or marketplace, and you can pretty much sell it to another player. You can trade it with someone else or do whatever you want with it. And the blockchain system we are working on is called Flow Blockchain, and what that allows you is actually to have different games from like different developers all interacting with each other in like a system which is sometimes referred to as the multiverse. So you have to think about it as basically code is on the blockchain, and so it's open and transparent, so other developers can interact with it. So if you think, for example, on like a Super Mario racing game, for example, where you have like different characters from the Nintendo universe playing with each other. In our case, a developer might come up with like, well, another battling game or like stay with the racing game example, where you can use your chain monsters to basically play another game without having to by basically reusing and recycling your existing assets. And I mean, we are an MMO, so you will receive continuous updates over the years. Our schedule is basically 2 years for the main development, but as I said, the label alpha is going to start and launch in January/February already. And yeah, well, what that allows you is basically to test the game, play the game as early as possible, and everyone who is participating during our testing, if you're submitting translations, for example, if you're coming from like Italy, for example, and you would like to provide like some community translations for Italy, for Italian, then you can basically submit them or add like completely new languages which are not supported by us natively, and participate in the whole process. And this is a pretty exciting part, I think.
That's pretty cool. Um, yeah, I was going to ask how the blockchain integration works and what that brings to the player, but I think you covered that quite nicely. Uh,
I think I would like to add one more thing. In the blockchain, in the current landscape, in the current definition, is like a pretty advanced and complicated concept. And what we do is actually, you play the game, you install it and download it on Steam or the App Store, for example, or on console, and everything related to blockchain is happening in the background. So you don't have to worry about any of the complicated stuff. What you do is basically you play a game, you have fun with your friends, and if you happen to be getting your hands on like a special item or a super rare Chainmon, for example, then you can just trade it on the marketplace, for example, or the auction house. And for those that are actually experienced blockchain users, they have the opportunity to participate in this player-driven environment, in this player-driven economy, because the marketplace, just like anything else, is available outside of the game as well. So you can, for example, create like a third-party website where you can basically trade your mons with each other without having to um, be in the game directly. And this is like also like another advantage of like this whole open development and open blockchain system.
yeah, and I can see that there are significant advantages to that. I've done some platinum trading on Warframe, and if I didn't have to open the game every time, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, having like another like companion app, for example, which lets you do that on the fly. I mean, well, what's actually pretty funny, we did have an pretty advanced multiplayer test last year, and what happened was we had people who were just playing the game. Since it's an MMO, they were just playing the game all day long. So they, well, technically they were at work, but since they had the game available on their phone and on their PC, they just played it on PC in the evening, and when they went to work the next day, they just continued to play on their phone. It's just like one system, one universe, one account for each platform.
Oh, that's cool. I like that. So you pay for like the account then, or how does that work?
The game itself has has a one-time fee. So you download it for free on like any platform. You can create your account for free, and then you will, in like 2 years down the road, you will have only access to like the very first area. And then once you want to get your hands on like the full game experience with like all areas and like all content, then you basically unlock the full game with a one-time fee, and then you have access to the full game experience like anyone else. And during Kickstarter, um, you have the opportunity to get access to the game not only in like the alpha state, the very first stages of the game, but also the game comes at like a slight discount. So in theory, if you support us now, if you download and back the game now, you can save some money and get some pretty nice exclusive rewards for it. For example, our Kickstarter exclusive outfit, or and I think like in the lower tiers, like a pretty interesting exclusive in-game title, which you can use to brag to other players. Yeah, I've been here first. Um, and then I think this this is actually something that could bring us to like a different dynamic. Going back to the blockchain part, um, if you go to our Kickstarter page, you have like the different tiers. You start with like the lowest bracket with like only alpha access and like only, for example, the outfit. But you can go pretty high to, for example, being an actual NPC in the game, which allows you to be customized, which allows you to customize the squad appearance and everything else, pretty much. And in terms of the blockchain mechanic, what that allows you is actually to say, well, the higher tiers, for example, include 4 or 5 times alpha access, for example. Well, what you could do is basically you claim alpha access once, you give one more to your friend, for example, and the other three, you can basically trade them on like the marketplace as well, since everything is basically on chain and locked and connected to your account, so you can move any of the rewards just like how it will be in the final game with anyone else. So
Right. So if I wanted
yeah,
to sell somebody that Kickstarter exclusive outfit, I theoretically
yeah,
could.
I mean, some people, yes, I mean there are players who might not be interested in like the outfit, for example, and once Kickstarter's over, there's like no way to acquire that outfit anymore. So there are and especially in like the blockchain space, there are like a ton of like collectors out there who really like to have exclusive items, especially if they are like limited in supply. So this might be interesting if you say, well, I paid like 20 euro for the game, for example, and maybe I can make 5 euros back from selling the outfit in a while. Sure, there's like a dynamic that is possible.
Cool. And speaking of rare collectible things, why don't you tell me a little bit about the variant chain mon that you got in there?
Yeah. As part of the Kickstarter campaign, we thought it might be pretty interesting to offer a super special reward for those people who would like to be incentivized to basically support us with a little bit more money than just the alpha tier. Um, and what we do is we really try to find a way to benefit from like the blockchain mechanic without being like pay to win. So everything we do in the game is not giving you an advantage in terms of like gameplay. So so we do have a tier which is priced at 350 euros, I believe, which allows you to own one of 600 special starter variations. In the game, there are three different variation types. We have the normal type, the shadow type, and the crystal variation. And the crystal variation is limited by 600 Chainmons, and this is like globally. So only 600 people in the whole world will ever be able to own one of those crystal chainmons. And and they do come with like a special look, special in-game appearance. Um, they do have some advanced individual values, which are like used in the game to calculate some of the stats. However, they are not broken. They mostly differentiate itself from like the design point of view, and they are limited by in total supply, so 600 units in total. And and yeah, it's basically one way to really like support people who are really would really like to push this project further. We're like really into scarce items, into like rarities and stuff, and who would like to have a nice play around with like the blockchain technology in the background.
Nice, nice. So, do you plan to add more variants over time, or?
Um, not well. So in the game we're developing right now, in the base game, like Chainmonsters 1.0, um, there are only those three variations. From a design point of view, we honestly don't know yet if we might have like some special um, event only, for example, variations coming in the future. For the full game, these three variations will be the basis. If you are familiar with Pokemon, then the Shadow variant is basically equal to the Pokemon Shinies. So those special Pokemons that also come with like a slight different in their visual appeal. Um, what we are doing is basically having a mutation and trait system. So each Chaemon has up to 2 traits, and they can have multiple mutations on their stats, for example. And if you, for example, breed them with each other, you can try to create like some better statted Chainmons. You can try to really breed like a huge tank, for example. If you're thinking about like the old rock paper scissors system, we're actually advancing the battle system quite a bit. Instead of being based on like only rock paper scissors, you have like different archetypes that you really need to specialize. So as I said earlier, you can have like a strong tank that is able to take up like a huge beating. Then you have like a weak smaller Chaemon that is only that's only purpose is to basically poison someone, to basically inflict status effects. All of these archetypes are really going to be a pretty huge dynamic, especially in the competitive scene. And speaking of the competitive scene, I guess one thing I can add, second, my headphone is falling off. In the competitive scene, and I'm sure there's like also like a thing that happens with like board games, for example, RNG, so like random number generations, and the effects on like game mechanics are pretty huge. And in our case, we are trying to find like a good mix of like fun RNG, but like actual player skill. So in the story, there's like a huge, like not huge, but like quite a bit of like RNG happening, um, with like the battles and how different attacks and effects affect your chainmons, for example. But during competitive matches in like tournaments, for example, you have actually reduced RNG because the battle arena, for example, will always be fixed, so you're not affected by like random effects happening during the day because, well, in the game there's dynamic weather, day-night cycle. So um, if you happen to be battling during the night, then some of your grass chainmons might actually be a little bit weaker due to the lack of sunshine, for example, and all those different effects. Yeah, RNG will be will in the game will be in the game because it's like super funny to have like some crazy situations sometimes. But during competitive matches, we turn them down to really uh, incentivize players to go based on their skill instead of like pure RNG.
Right, absolutely. Uh, And what are there other major mechanical differences between this and the classic Pokemon game?
Um, yeah, I mean, there are like actually a ton. So in the let's see, what are the classical Pokemon mechanics again?
I think
No,
like
so yeah, so basically we our main differentiators in terms of like comparing to like only Pokemon is basically and I'll just list them and then we can go into, into a little bit detail. It's basically the battle system, the multiplayer, the blockchain integration, which empowers like the marketplace and economy. Um, um, and these are like currently the main points. The so the first, what did I say first?
combat,
Oh yeah,
combat.
the combat, the battles. So I teased a little bit earlier on. We will have some kind of like archetype system. So in Pokemon, you got like those strict types where like one type was able to beat another, and then this was beaten by like another. So no rock paper scissors. We also do have types, but those types are mostly relevant to ensure that not all Chainmons um, can learn like the same abilities, for example. Um, from a and I guess another main differentiator is from a pure statistics point of view. If you're into stats and into maximizing your Chainmons, um, they're technically base stats don't have such a big impact on the actual performance of your Chainmon than in, for example, Pokemon. In Pokemon, um, and I'm sorry that I'm unable to mention the English names of the Pokemons because I'm German and we had like different translated Pokemon names. But basically, in Pokemon, you had like a pretty weak Pokemon you found in like the very first area, and you aren't able to use it in like the competitive scene. What we are trying to do is basically to have every single of those 136 Chainmons to be uniquely designed. And if we put a lot of effort into designing them, we also want to see them in the game in play. And that's why we are trying to connect different game mechanics with each other. I talked about breeding. I talked about like the type mechanics and the ability systems. And you basically will be able to convert most, if not all, of the Chainmons in the game into a competitive version. And this is achieved with breeding, with mutations, and with traits. Um, and this is pretty interesting because when I look at like traditional Pokemon competitive seeds, for example, there are only like 10, maybe like 15 different Pokemons that are used competitively, and this is like a huge chain because like then the other, I don't know how many others
Eight
there are
eight
currently.
800 some, I think.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but basically, like most of the others are no longer used, and this is pretty sad, I think. And what we thought is basically, yeah, let's try to solve that issue. Let's try to um, let the people put more put like more effort into the chambers itself, into the archetype system, into like really trying to find strategies to beat your opponent, sometimes on the fly. Um, and this is why this is like actually another huge part of what is like a big differentiator between the two series. Um, and there's like the fifth reason is actually the bonding system. And before I forget about the bonding system, I'll just explain a little bit. So the bonding system is basically the premise is your Chainmons should feel like friends and less like stats on a graph. And this is why every single Chainmon you catch or you trade with another player has like some uh, um, uh, advantages and advantages depending on the current state it is in, and you really need to put some effort into it. You need to play some mini games with them, like not hard mini games, but like some smaller things that make them happy. For example, you can relax in like the recently unlocked Eluvia Park. Name is currently to be discussed, but it's currently referred to as Eluvia Park. You can just hang out with your Chainmons and just spend some quality time with them and keep them happy. And when you trade a Chainmon with another player, then you need to spend some time with them before they can unlock their full potential. And this is basically the bonding system. Um, and yeah, this is like one of the other things. But back to combat. So you know that we don't have that much that we don't put that much
Emphasis
points,
on the
basically emphasis like on the base stats pretty much. What we do is, well, you do have you still have like turn-based battles with like up to 4 players at once, so 2 versus 2, or 1 versus 2, and stuff. But basically, um, there's like a new mechanic which is called which is more or less stamina. We are currently calling it ability points, but I think so far we've received feedback from the community, and they said, well, a stamina system sounds better. So we'll probably refer to it from as a stamina system now. What that means is basically every single ability, um, instead of having a limited amount of charges, which is like used in Pokemon, um, those ability points, or those stamina points, are basically used on and spent on abilities. So every ability, for example, like a powerful flamethrower ability, cost like for example 10 stamina points, and each Shaman has like only limited amount of stamina points, so you have to recharge them over time. And the recharge process is actually essential to the whole battle and combat flow, because your monster your Shaman has to rest a full turn. You can't swap it out, you can't do anything else with it. It has to rest a full turn. And this is basically pretty impactful, especially based on our testing so far, on like the whole mechanic on how a squad works. Because then you go back to the archetype system, where you have like some weaker Chainmons that have like very specific abilities that you can use to counter other effects or other abilities of your opponent. So trying to figure out the best time to swap out your Chainmons with each other, and trying to figure out when to recharge them, is essential to well, win over your opponent. So yeah, with the bonding system, battle system. What else do we got? I mean, the multiplayer and the blockchain system, I kind of explained quite a bit. In well, since we are building Chainmonsters in like a true MMO style, you not only have like all of those other players running around, completing quests and competing with you on your journey. You actually have some pretty interesting public raids and events happening over time. So, for example, and this is something we're actually going to tease on Tuesday. So, in like so next week, on like let me check quickly, the 17th. So this is what we're going to tease next week, where you basically join with a group of friends. Currently, we are planning on having like a squad of like 4 or 5 people, and to join them together, you go into a dungeon, and some dungeons are actually procedurally generated. And I'm a huge fan of like randomly generated games. I've played a lot of like Nuclear Throne, for example. I don't know if you're familiar with like those also
yeah.
retro style shooter games. But like procedural generation is not only great from like a player's point of view, because every time you play the game or play the same dungeon or level, it looks completely different or slightly different depending on the effort put into the algorithm, obviously. But that also allows us to basically push out more and more content over time, even with like our well, small team. We're currently 5 people internally, with plus like 5 freelancers, so actually not that small anymore. But we're basically using like mechanics like this to actually put out like a lot of content in like a short amount of time, um, without hurting like the overall effect of like the game development and the game's premise. So yeah, the dungeon system is actually coming in the alpha already, which again starts in like 2 months already. And the public rates, we've been looking at a lot of. I mean, I've played a little bit of World of Warcraft a few years ago, and we've been playing like other MMOs a little bit and looked at how they implemented raids and like other multiplayer mechanics. And what we are actually looking at is, and we tested it last year already, which was like a great success, is we had dynamic events in the world. So when you have like 20, 30 different areas you travel through during the alpha, for example. And sometimes if you are out in the wild, you not only encounter wild chain mons, but you also encounter like some random bosses, for example, that just happen to spawn right next to you, and those offer like special rewards and like other pretty cool mechanics um, that are interesting. So whenever something like this happens, other players in the nearby will be informed, and they can join in on the action. And you actually have like one globally shared health bar, for example, for that encounter, and you sometimes have to do specific challenges and mechanics in order to defeat it. But again, similar to like a traditional MMO, there's also always a reward at the end, so your efforts will be will be rewarded. um, yeah, I'm just thinking, I think these were like the main uh, differentiators to the traditional series. If you are part of the overall monster taming community, there are like, I think like 40, 50 like other monster taming games out there already or in development that all add like their own unique twists and designs to the whole genre. So this is pretty exciting for us to see, especially as it's like a super friendly community, and everyone is supporting each other with like shout outs, for example, or sharing. And this is like super nice.
Yeah, I've played a couple monster taming games in my time. I tried picking up Fossil Fighters recently, but my wrists are too bad for that, unfortunately. Um,
Oh,
you have to like, clean fossils that you find with the stylus on the DS. It's weird.
oh, I see.
Yeah, it's time limited, so it's rough on the wrists, but it's a fun game. Yeah, a lot of my friends are very much into like monster taming games, including the D&D ones. Um, so I'm glad to see this.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So with the multiplayer functionality, am I able to play this on the subway on my way to work where I don't have an internet connection?
Yeah, so the game is unfortunately a pure multiplayer experience, so you will need to be connected to the internet all the time. I myself, I'm pretty much affected by like bad network conditions. Because right now, due to COVID, I'm back at like I'm not in like a huge city. I'm currently at my home here. We're not at our offices right now. Um, and especially on like a mobile connection, that can be a little bit difficult to keep like a stable connection. We will have like a reconnection system, so even if you have like some smaller hiccups in your connection, for example, um, you might not even notice it if you're just like managing your squad, for example, on your smartphone. This should be fairly unnoticeable. um, but in general, if you are outside of like a mobile connection or your home or a Wi-Fi place, then you won't be able to connect to the game. Um, we might have some opportunities to experiment with like some offline systems where you can just like look at your squads, look at your team. Um, Maybe do like some smaller micro interactions with like your chainmons. Again, going back to the bonding system, um, we might have something like that for these cases, but yeah, mostly it requires an internet connection.
Yeah, fair enough, and that is the price of the experience,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Any other elements of Chain Monsters that you'd like to highlight?
Again, some a little bit with like the blockchain and the rewards. So in when you play the game, when you play during the alpha, or when the game is completely out in like version 1.0, we will have a slightly different monetization model than like, for example, a classical Pokemon. as I said before, you basically either during Kickstarter or after the game is out, you pay a one-time fee to unlock the full game across all platforms once. And this gives you access to like the whole game, all future updates. And if we have like a huge positive response from the community, we will of course try to add like some huge content updates, some huge expansions over time. I mean, this is like pretty much our plan anyway. Um, but yeah, just teasing this a little bit. But what we're actually going to do is have, in order to sustain the development and to sustain the game servers, etc., to make a living out of it, obviously, we will have a season pass based monetization model. And this is completely optional, and this also plays back into the whole blockchain system running in the background. So during alpha, everyone who participates now during Kickstarter will get access to our official preseason season pass, and that allows you to basically earn. Right now, it's currently set to 25, so 25 additional cosmetics for your character, for like customization and stuff for you or your chainmons, items and other non non game breaking benefits for your account basically, and you basically unlock them by playing the game, by doing challenges, doing some extra quests and stuff. And this is completely optional. It will never have an effect on, for example, your performance in battle. This is like your our biggest concern, and I know this like it might be a concern for like most players who are like, oh, I don't want to do this to let this become pay to win. So we are just going the pure cosmetic and visual route basically. And with the blockchain in mind, this actually allows you to, if you play now, if you support us now, and you unlock those preseason rewards during the alpha, then you might be one of the only 1,000 people in the world, depending on how many people end up supporting us during the alpha, to have access and to own one of those early rewards. And again, um, these are limited in supply. Once the game season is over, the players are no longer able to get their hands on them. So think about, like, for example, I play sometimes I play a little bit of, like, for example, Call of Duty, and they also have like a season pass, and those skins you get, for example, they are only available during each season. But in Chainmonsters, you now actually have the opportunity to, well, sell it to someone else, for example, or trade it with someone else who didn't play back in like our alpha, for example, or who didn't play during the first season. And it's like a fairly cheap way to or inexpensive way to support the game after launch. So it will probably cost only like 10 US dollars, for example. And yeah, the first or the actual development will grant you a free preseason pass. So if you find the game interesting and you want to play it during alpha already, you have the opportunity to get your hand on like 25 additional items and cosmetics that will only be available during alpha and during development. There's like another thing I thought is pretty important to mention.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and the currency used for the marketplace stuff, is that like in-game currency or real money, or how does that work?
Yeah, so this is a little bit like a little bit more of a complicated topic, but it's only complicated because right now we're currently looking at like different ways to implement it. Um, so we probably will end up using like an in-game currency to get your hands on like some consumable items. So for example, if you want to recharge your health pretty much while you are out in the wild, you have like an item that you can consume, and this currency will strictly be limited to the game itself. So you won't be able to buy it with like real money. It's completely internally as part of the story, basically, as the currency you receive from defeating NPCs and stuff. Um, and then we will probably have like another internal like another premium currency that will you use to interact with the auction house, the marketplace. And but it works in both ways. So you purchase them, for example, with like on the App Store, for example, you get like 500 of this premium currency, and then you use it on the marketplace and you trade it. But you will also have the opportunity to use the internal currency for like trading. It's like an optional system. But if you, for example, are like super lucky, you find like a super legendary item or whatever, you will have the opportunity to pretty much cash out the funds you got in the game to like your wallet. Um, we are currently looking at different solutions. There are some different ways to approach this. I mean, it's like we got like most of the game mechanics in the game and like the multiplayer infrastructure going. So that's why we can launch it to alpha so soon, actually, after the campaign. Um, but like these things are like pretty much further down the road. So in our roadmap. So, but for example, going back to like the Call of Duty example, you can, for example, participate in tournaments and you can cash out to your PayPal, for example. So these solutions exist, and we just have to decide which one we end up using, because sometimes those vendors take like a huge fee for like the transaction processing. But yeah, we will take care of that, and we will find a solution that works for everyone with like a fair system.
Cool. I'm glad to hear that because that sounds like a ton of fun. Yeah. I know one of my favorite things about PUBG when I played that was I could sell my items on the Steam marketplace. Uh,
Yeah,
I
it, it
think
it's
I paid for the entire cost of the game doing that over the course of my 1,000 hours or whatever.
I mean, if you spend like 1,000 hours into a game, then it is like a great incentive or great like benefit to actually get something back. And here you are like truly rewarded for actually going the extra mile. So I mean, you for example, in like any MMO, for example, you have people who are the first group, for example, to defeat like a huge epic raid boss, for example, and they get like an in-game achievement for that. Sometimes, like in World of Warcraft, for example, which well I use as an example. Um, and in our case, they will be the first ones to actually have their hands on like this super legendary rare item. And sometimes those raid bosses or events are limited, so you can only encounter them during a specific event. And yeah, similar to like your experience with like the Steam marketplace, you can now actually trade them in game directly with someone else, or or for example, if someone was going to I mean, there are already developers out there who are currently building a Steam like marketplace for Chainmonsters, so you can actually trade your future items with someone else on their website, for example, similar to the Steam marketplace. But the great thing is you have the ability to interact with like this whole system without ever leaving the game. So you just put them up for sale, for example, in the game, and then if you make a sale and profit from it, you can cash it out. And that's like a pretty nice system to reward those who are really like super like the biggest fans in the game.
Right, absolutely. That's cool. I like that. Uh, Anything else you'd like to bring up while you're here?
Um, well, I mean, I guess you can check out the Kickstarter page. If you are into board games, like if you as a community are like mostly into board games, then I'm sure you are also a huge fan of like concept art and like super nice visuals. And our Kickstarter page is pretty packed with like a lot of like super awesome visuals. Our art director Lena is like super like super amazing with like paintings and concept art and everything, and we are just everything is full of it. So even if you just want to like to check out like some amazing artworks, then go to our Kickstarter page and take a look. um yeah, I think yeah, I don't have like anything else specifically, I think.
All right. Well, there's a link to the Kickstarter below this video, so go click that. And Max, it's been a joy talking to you. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine. Thank you for having me.
And for everybody watching at home, have a good night.
Good night.